What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It is First Seed Sports. We are back again. Week number 8 coming up and coming at you. And Kyle, Mike, and Zach, we're here with our starts and sits for the week. So let's get right into the action. Fellas, we both are, all three of us survived the bipocalypse, right? We made it out alive.
Luckily.
Yeah, not that bad.
Well, at least with most of our rosters, anyway. We'll see if we can fight the injury bug this week. That's the next big one. So, all right, Kyle, kick us off. Who's your start of the week?
All right, my start of the week is Marvin Jones Jr. of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He currently leads that team in targets. He has a 24% target share. And he entered the bye last week with 10 targets and 100 yards and a touchdown from their big game in London. Mm-hmm. And I think he kind of comes back against this really weak Seattle defense and just kind of has maybe even a similar game. Just being that target leader, deep balls, close balls. He's just going to catch them. He's going to potentially score. I think he will. And just be a really, really solid start this week, especially after this whole team is rested up after the bye.
Yeah, I love that start. I think I'm a Marvin Jones owner in a lot of my leagues, and I've kind of been sitting on the fence waiting for him to kick it into gear. And it was nice in London seeing him finally get that target share that I think he really deserves in this offense. He's 31 years old. He's obviously the alpha of the group. He's got I'm trying to even think of some of the guys behind him. He's got Laviska Shenault. He's got I'm blanking on who the other target there even is. I can't off the top of my head.
Right now it's Tavon and Tyron Johnson.
Yeah.
So Chark just went down.
That's Chark. That's what I was trying to come up with. But yeah, he's the lead dog. And I don't know why it's taken Trevor Lawrence so long to realize that he's got a deep threat jump ball receiver on his team, very similar to like a Mike Williams or a T Higgins from Lawrence's college days. You just throw the ball up to the guy, let him go make a play. It just kind of kills me that it's taken him this long. But I agree with you. I think that this is the part of the season where Trevor's kind of got to put up or shut up, and he's going to go to his wide receiver one here. So I love it.
Yeah, and I'll go off of that. I absolutely love what you said just about his time coming here. I'll go on a limb and say I love all Jacksonville receivers this week in general. Like Kyle was saying, he had 10 targets going into the bye week. And like you said, Zach, it finally took him all this time to realize he is a deep ball guy that he can kind of just throw the ball up to. He's a veteran. He'll know what to do. He'll make a play for him. So I kind of like him and Shenault this week. I don't think you can go wrong with either receiver. Most likely for most people from where they took him, he'll be like a wide receiver 3 flex play this week. But I absolutely love it over some of the other wide receivers 3s that you may have on your team. I think this is a go-to guy for this week.
Yeah, it's fantastic having a guy with a almost 15-ish point floor, as your wide receiver 3. If you can plug him in as your flex, that you got to feel great rolling into your week with that. All right, so Mike, I'm gonna hop over myself. I'll let you go next with your start of the week.
All right, I'm going with Robert Tonyan this week. So as we all know, Packers play the Cardinals Thursday night, which is tomorrow. We're recording Wednesday night here. And there's a lot of injuries. No Devontae Adams, no Alan Lazard as well. And I just think that his role is kind of expanding, the way I've seen it, there's always been 2 safety blankets on the Green Bay Packers. It's always been Devontae Adams and Robert Tonyan. When Rodgers needs to put the ball in someone's hands and he could trust them winning a one-on-one, especially when they were sending blitzes at him and all this and that, I think Robert Tonyan is that number 2 guy that he can kind of just throw the ball up and trust them to make a play. And then you look at his stats from last week. He went 4 for 5, 4 receptions, 5 targets, and a touchdown. He finally found the end zone. So I'm thinking here with no Packers wide receivers healthy, they have a veteran Randall Cobb and some other guys such as like St. Brown that are going to be playing. I know Scantling's a little banged up. He's trending towards being questionable, whatever that is there. So I like Robert Tonyan as a safety blanket here, and that's a tight end that I would definitely take a long shot on this week and start him.
I have a love-hate relationship with Tonyan, especially this season, because he has just not been good. He had just his second game last week with over 10 fantasy points, and that was thanks to a nice touchdown he had. But you're right. There are 2 receivers most likely not to play. And I saw a stat that when Davante Adams didn't play last year, Tonyan had 4 touchdowns in the 2 games. And one of them was a big 3-touchdown game. But those were weeks 3 and 4 last year. But still, those are kind of like the birth of the Robert Tonyan we thought we were getting this year. But yeah, I mean, I think he's a really safe play for kind of those guaranteed targets because Rodgers has to throw it to someone. And Tonyan is probably the most familiar face he has on that receiving core right now. But yeah, I think he's a very safe start this week.
Yeah, I'm just going to pile on. I think Rodgers is a big trust guy, and I think he goes to the guys he trusts, and that really kind of lends to Robert Tonyan, and it lends to Randall Cobb a lot. Obviously, Tonyan isn't going to be able to take up 100% of the targets in this offense, so we're going to see the ball spread to some of the wide receivers. You said EQ St. Brown is going to get some targets. I wouldn't be surprised if Cobb gets the lion's share of the receiver targets, but I think that we are also going to see an uptick in Robert Tonyan's targets this week in a positive way. One other thing I wanted to mention is that the good thing for Tonyan being a veteran, I'll call him, he's 4 years in the league, he's been around for a while, and he's been with the Packers for a while. He's going against 2 young inside linebackers in the Cardinals defense, and Zaven Collins and I'm going to blank Isaiah Simmons. That both are solid in coverage, but you kind of trust the experience of your 4th-year tight end to run better routes and to be able to shake off those younger defenders who might not be as disciplined as some of the other guys that they've seen throughout the season. So I love the start. I think Robert Tonyan is, if you have him on your roster, if you've kept him this long, or if you manage to pick him up this week, I think he's a great play. Especially given all the other guys who are out for Green Bay. I think it's a must start almost. So, all right, I'll go ahead and I'll finish up our segment here with another pass catcher. I'm going with wide receiver Emmanuel Sanders from the Buffalo Bills. Really, I'm taking this based off of how Sanders has been trending in the Buffalo offense. He has been kind of straight uphill lately. He started off the season with some poor performances. I'm pulling up his stats in front of me right now. Give me 1 second. He started off the season with 9.6 points. It wasn't anything that you were too excited with, but then you gradually saw the yardage climb, and you gradually saw the touchdowns and the receptions start to climb for him. He only had 4 catches, 2 catches weeks 1 and 2, and then we saw 5, 3. It went down back against Kansas City again, but then 5 again. And anytime he finds the end zone, he's guaranteed to boom. So he's also playing against an extremely, extremely soft Miami defense. God bless Brian Flores and Tua, because they're doing everything in their power to keep that Miami ship afloat, but that defense just keeps letting them down. So we saw Russell Gage, we saw Calvin Ridley, we saw Kyle Pitts, we saw Cordero Patterson, all just absolutely torch the Dolphins last week for fantasy weeks. So I love basically everyone in this Bills offense this week. Even if you want to go as far as Sweeney, the backup tight end for the injured Dawson Knox, I like them top to bottom this week. But Emmanuel Sanders is one guy that I'm especially high on, because that they're going to stick Xavier Howard on Diggs probably one-on-one, and that's going to leave that number 2, either Beasley or, in my opinion, Sanders, as the guy who's wide open all night long. So I am super high on Emmanuel Sanders this week.
Yeah, I think this Buffalo team is going to just run right over Miami and score truly as much as they want, because Miami is falling apart. But again, it's the same thing I said about Marvin Jones. They're coming off a bye. This Buffalo team is going to be rested, and he just came off an 8-target matchup. And it's funny because you mentioned he dipped to 3 catches in week 5, but 2 of those 3 catches were touchdowns.
Can't argue with that, right?
Yeah. So I think, I love Sanders, and he's a fantastic start this week.
Just to, Mike, real quick, I'm just going to butt in. Just to remind you guys, last year, if you guys remember, the Dolphins and the Bills played in week 17, I believe, and it was win and get in for the Dolphins, and the Bills beat them 56-26. So the Bills, like, they don't love the Dolphins, and if they can hang points on the Dolphins, they're going to.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely kind of like what we saw from the Buccaneers last week with Tom Brady just padding those stats. They had that game in the bags probably well into the start of the third quarter, and they just kept throwing. So yeah, the Bills are a team that love points. And like going back to what you were saying about Sanders here, he's one of the more sneaky wide receiver twos this year. Not a lot of people realize it, but he's one of those deadly wide receiver twos, kind of like an advanced like Michael Gallup role. The way that he is technically the second outside guy in that offense. So he kind of has a similar role. And going into this week as well, you may not have Dawson Knox again. So who knows if he's going to be ready to go this week. So the opportunity is there. And I think, like we said, the game script is Buffalo wants to score as much as they can on you at all times. So I love the Sanders play this week. I actually have him in one league, and I am starting him. I love the play.
He actually just falls out of the wide receiver 2 range right now. He's wide receiver 29 on the season, but he's ahead of guys like Keenan Allen, Corey Davis, Marvin Jones, like we talked about, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, even Calvin Ridley is behind him. Like he's putting up a quietly very nice season.
And that's with the bye week.
Right. Yeah. I was just about to say that is with the bye week.
Yep. Right, definitely. So, okay. All right, let's flip the bill here. No pun intended. Kyle, give me your sit of the week.
My sit of the week is the top waiver target of this past week, and that is running back Kenneth Gainwell. And I am going to completely ignore the matchup because historically, I mean, this whole season, Detroit has been the worst defense for running backs. So running backs are just scoring rampantly against Detroit. So I'm just going to ignore that because Philadelphia does not run the ball and the running backs do not exist. And all of Kenny Gainwell's points this year are on, I mean, he has 2 rushing touchdowns, but everything else is all from receptions. He is a receiver. I mean, Philadelphia doesn't run the ball, but I don't see Gainwell stepping in and being the running back. I see him being the pass catcher he has been. I see Boston Scott being more involved than he should be. But I don't see this backfield being effective in this game when they should be. But this Eagles organization is not running the ball like any other team, and it's weird. But for that reason, I am not trusting Gainwell this week.
Mike, I'll pass it to you. Go ahead. You're a Kenneth Gainwell believer in the group, so go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about it before the show here. I'm actually playing Kyle this week in my fantasy league here, and I'm starting Gainwell. Little bit of I don't really have anybody else. A little bit of I kind of have faith in him. But Kyle did make a good point. Boston Scott is still in that offense there. I think that at the end of this game, kind of like what you said, Kyle, with game script, I think Boston Scott might have more carries than Gainwell. But I do expect Gainwell's targets to be up there in the 7, 8 to 10 range, somewhere in there. And like you said, like that Eagles offense right now, they kind of have a weird identity. They're playing the Detroit Lions this week, one of the worst run teams in the league. And I guarantee you Jalen Hurts throws the ball 45 times this week. You know, it's just one of those type of things. So I do agree with you here. It's not a great play in playing Kenneth Gainwell if you have a wide receiver. Running back 3 kind of flex spot there, and you're kind of fumbling with a few other wide receivers. I would definitely give him that PPR edge, plus maybe 20, 30 yards on the ground, give or take. So I definitely think that Kenneth Gainwell would have an edge on some lower-end wide receivers this week, but overall, if you're looking at a default format with 2 and 2 running backs receivers, I'd probably keep Gainwell on the bench this week.
I'm going to second everything that you guys said. I'm actually going to I'm not a really big person to take victory laps when it comes to fantasy, you know, of getting something right. But coming into the season, one of the offenses that I refused to tie myself to in any way was the Philadelphia offense. Just because whether it was Goddard and Ertz, whether it was the just absolute cluster F that is the receiving core, or whether it was Miles Sanders, who couldn't get it going last season, let alone this season with a new coach. The Eagles just don't really have any offensive identity at this point, and I don't want I don't want one of the essential weeks of my fantasy season, making or breaking whether I'm playoff contention or not, resting in the hands of Nick Sirianni and which running back he's going to go with. So for me, I love this sit, and I'm hands off of Kenneth Gainwell. Admittedly, if I could get him at a cheap price on waivers this week, if I could sneak him in and get him quick, and I need him as a flex, I'm going to play him. But I am not banking my team's success on him as my RB1 or my RB2 this week. So I love that sit. All right, Mike, flip it to you. Go ahead. Who's your sit of the week? You got a big one here.
All right. So I am sitting Mike Evans this week. After a monster week last week, I think that this is going to be another quiet week for Evans. If you guys did watch the Manning cast this Monday, Tom Brady was on it as a guest and kind of talked about the whole ball situation. And it was kind of funny in that little speech he was giving there. He kind of recognized that he tries to get the ball around a lot. He wants everybody to get the ball. And the only reason kind of Evans and Godwin's receptions are up right now, including Fournette's, is obviously because of the injury / COVID to Antonio Brown right now, who's seen on a crutch today. So Evans will still have a bigger role to see some targets, but his history against Marshawn Lattimore has been very, very bad. I look at last year here. Let me get it pulled up here. He had 1 reception on 4 targets week 1 last year against the New Orleans Saints. If you want to say that's a so-so, because that was technically Brady's first go-around, you could say that there. And then even in the second game, 6 targets, 4 receptions, 64 yards, nothing crazy there. And that one was actually at home. But I think with the matchup he has and kind of like that boom week that he had last week, I think like Brady said, he wants to get the ball around. I think he's going to figure out different ways to spread that ball around this week, and I think he's going to try to stay away from that one-on-one matchup with Lattimore.
Kyle, I'll flip to you. Go ahead.
Making sure my connection is stable right now.
You're okay. We can see. We're good.
All right. This one I might have to fight you with, Mike. Tampa Bay without another potential week without Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, and Chris Godwin are going to just kind of ball out a little bit more than they usually do, like they did last week. And Brady is just I don't know what's up with him, but he is just ready to throw a touchdown at any point this season. And on the end of most of those touchdowns is Mike Evans. I mean, he saw 3 touchdowns last week. And I don't see him quietly going back down to 0 this week, especially against a divisional rival in New Orleans. I think Tampa Bay has a pretty good game this week heading into the bye that they have in week 9. So if I have Mike Evans, I am starting him. But at the same time, I understand that there are definitely some risks. He's definitely been a little bit of a boom bust player this week with those 2 5 and 4 point games. But I don't know. I'm starting him.
I will nestle somewhere right in the middle of you guys, I guess. I think I'm not expecting huge things from him this week, and I'm going to base that off of Mike's point with Marshawn Lattimore. If there was one thing we saw this past week, or this past Monday, it was Marshawn Lattimore getting bullied by DK Metcalf. He was getting just absolutely thrown around the field by a bigger wide receiver. And I think he's going to do everything in his power this week to come out with a more physical presence against a big-bodied Mike Evans. With that being said, Evans is a huge wide receiver, and he's I would say, even over Godwin, he's Brady's focal point in the offense. When things break down, he tends to throw a jump ball to Mike Evans because he knows Evans will go up and get it. So while Mike, I think you said in the second game that they had of last season against the Saints, he had 4 catches for 64 yards. I think you said.
Yes.
That's right on par with where I see him ending up this week. I think he's going to just hit right in that middle. He's not going to boom. He's not going to bust. But I think he's going to end up right in that middle tier. So essentially what I'm saying is, if you have a guy that you think is going to outperform him and is going to, hit the target, if you have Jones or an Emmanuel Sanders sitting on your bench where you're weighing, do I start Mike Evans or do I start one of these guys? Take the swing, But I'm not saying that I hate him this week either. I think I'm somewhere right in the middle of the two of them. I think the Bucks offense is just rolling right now, so I think he's going to get his regardless. But I definitely understand where you're coming from. With they never seem to play well against the Saints, so I think that that's a good point too. So, okay. All right. For me, my sit of the week, I am actually going to talk about another running back. I'm following Kyle here. My sit of the week is going to be Darrell Williams, the running back for the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm basing it off a couple things. The first thing that I'm going to talk about is his performance this past week. Now, they played a Tennessee Titans defense that is improving. It's getting better every week. They have some huge pieces. They have Jeffrey Simons. I'm not sure how you say it off the top of my head. He's number 98. He's on the defensive line. He is a huge human being. Like, I never realized how much of a freakishly gigantic man he is until I watched some of that game this week. But he wreaked havoc. And this week they're playing a pretty solid defensive line in the New York Giants. I know that sounds absolutely insane for me to say, but the Giants actually do have a pretty respectable defensive line. I saw a lot of, being a Panthers fan, I watched that. I don't even know what to call that was last week, but I watched Chuba Hubbard not be able to do anything for 4 straight quarters against that Giants front seven. So I saw a lot of Leonard Williams in the backfield. I hope I get this right. I saw a lot of Dexter Lawrence in the backfield. It was just, they were all over the place. Ojulari, the linebacker, the rookie linebacker, was flying around for them. It was just a really, really solid performance. So that's one thing working against him. The other thing is, if Pat Mahomes happens to suit up this week, I can guarantee you that they are going to try to get him back into form against a weaker New York Giants secondary. I know that the Giants overall have a solid defense. That's one of the things that they have kind of going for them this year. But if Mahomes is ready to go for the Giants, they are trying to get him. They're doing anything they can to get him back into form, and that's going to be at the expense of the run game, unfortunately. Those games when we see Mahomes have 4 or 5 touchdowns, you barely see Clyde do anything, or you barely see Williams do anything in those games. So I think that this week, if you have Darrell Williams and he's still, he's still the RB1 there, I'm leaning towards sitting him just because I think that it is going to be against one, a tough front line, and 2, it's going to be the Pat Mahomes show. So I'm benching Darrell Williams this week.
Yeah, I think we're going to see one of those weeks where it's been talk all week long about the Chiefs missing a step. They have taken several steps back on offense, and I think we are going to see this offense prove everybody wrong, and just kind of come out and torch the ground. And you can't torch the ground with Darrell Williams. You torch it with Pat Mahomes, Tyreek, and Travis Kelce. And I really think that is what this game is going to be. However, it's tricky. I'm looking at his past few weeks of touches, and he had 21 touches or rushing attempts in week 6 and then 5 last week. And I think part of that is just from them playing from behind. Kansas City is not a team to run the ball when they are trying to chase points. So I could see it. I could see it being the second half, and they're up 30 points on this Giants team, and maybe they rush back with Darrell Williams and just let everybody rock. Let everybody else learn that the Chiefs' offense is back. But you can't really gamble. On that. So I'm probably with you, and I am now going to sit Darrell Williams if I can afford to. And yeah, I kind of like this call.
Yeah, and you guys even both brought it up that this is kind of a not so season-ending game if the Chiefs loses, but this is a make-or-break game. They have a lot of national attention from the media right now. They're struggling, and I don't think that this is a game where they say, all right, we're struggling, let's get back on track by feeding Darrell Williams. No, it's going to have to be a Mahomes kind of confidence booster game. You look at his presence on the sideline, his interviews. He just has a lot of bad energy right now. It's because things are not going well. But I did like the way that they responded. I saw a lot of stuff from social media and stuff of them saying that they have to get back on track and they love the challenge of all this, which is what champions say. So let's see if they do it. But you're right. I agree with both of you guys. I am not betting on them to make it a big Darrell Williams week. I think it's a rebound week for all of the bigger guys like Kelsey, Hill, and Mahomes.
And I think the key point here with all of these guys, the waiver wire guys that we're talking about is if you can afford to sit them, or if you can afford to put someone in over them. So the Kenny Gainwell, the Darrell Williams, if you can afford to pull them out of your lineup, then that's what we're saying here. Not necessarily, sit him for I don't even know what a good example is, but we're saying keep them in if you need them. Yeah. Or Salvon Ahmed, that kind of thing. So, all right, just to kind of recap real quick, our starts of the week, Kyle had Marvin Jones, I have Emmanuel Sanders, and Mike has Robert Tonyan. And our sits of the week, Kyle has Kenny Gainwell, Mike, you have Mike Evans, and I have Darrell Williams. So, anything else you want to add, fellas?
No, good luck. Good to go, man.
Let's see some more W's. Hopefully you didn't get hit with buys too hard this week after last week's miserableness. That was just awful. Opening up our lineups on Tuesday morning this past week and seeing all those buys. So, but hey, we'll be good. That's what we're here for, and hopefully we can help coach you guys to a win. So, good luck in week 8, and we will see you guys again next week.